on a patch of sagebrush and hardscrabble, between the rugged Wasatch Mountains and the shores of the Great Salt Lake. In a no-man's land between the northern Paiute and southern Shoshone tribes, Miles Goodyear established the first Anglo settlement in the Great Basin, in what would eventually become the state of Utah. He and his fellow mountain men were scrappy and resourceful, trapping the abundant and lucrative beaver that teemed in the nearby mountain valleys, establishing Fort Buenaventura as a trading post between the idea of manifest destiny and the region's Native American tribes, all of them living off the land. They established the first strands of the gritty individualistic DNA that flows through the area to this day. The fort was eventually sold, and immigrant Mormon families were assigned by Brigham Young to further settle and cultivate the area. Families with names like Farr and Marriott. Yeah, the Marriott family that became one of the most globally recognized names in the travel and hospitality industries. J. Willard Marriott was born and raised, educated right here. As westward expansion accelerated with the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, farm boys like David Eccles grew into industrialists. Yeah, that Eccles. The family name you see on Utah parks, plazas, libraries, hospitals, colleges, stadiums, even the Federal Reserve building in our nation's capital. With the railroad came mobility, and the next generation of grit and individualism grew into inventors with access to Eastern factories. Names like Browning. Yeah, that Browning. Again, with the theaters, performing arts centers, and museums. With 9 different rail lines and over 140 trains per day converging at Ogden's iconic Union Station, virtually everyone traveling across the country had to lay over in Ogden. You couldn't build a better model for tourism if you tried. In fact, the city's slogan and fundamental truth for several years was, "You can't get anywhere without coming to Ogden." But the visionaries that had once stepped off trains to meet in Ogden's luxurious hotels, bars, restaurants, and coffee shops as they laid out their blueprints for passenger planes and freeway systems, eventually saw their visions brought to life. Train travel stopped. The fall from bustling to bust was rapid. And over the course of a few short years, downtown Ogden began to board itself up as neon burned out. In that darkness, crime crept in. From an increase in the low-level crime found everywhere to some of the highest-profile crimes Utah had ever seen. Hell, the place got so bad that the Osmond family got scared out of Ogden all the way to Utah County. The boom to bust was so severe that within a generation, Ogden's glory days were forgotten. The bust lasted long enough that a subsequent generation of Utahns accepted an entirely different perspective on Utah's oldest settlement. Get out, stay out.
25th Street was almost destined to failure. There was a lot of bars down here. There were a lot of crime, a lot of prostitution, just about everything else. This street was known nationwide as one of the toughest streets in the nation. And that helped to its decline. People were scared to death to come down here. When I used to come here in 1960, 61, I'd get out of my car and walk up the street, and there'd be a blood trail up the street heading by the gift house. I'd just say, well, somebody else got stabbed last night. So it was a rough and tumble street.
I mean, there were 35 bars at one time down here on the 100 and 200 block, and lots of crime, lots of death, lots of drugs, lots of that kind of thing.
When we came down 25th Street, it was quite a few boarded up buildings, a lot of homeless people sleeping on the streets, a lot of just dirt, a lot of actually dirt patches where buildings used to be, and our building was pretty much a falling down building with holes in the floors and the walls and everything else. And so we rolled up our sleeves. We are young enough and maybe possibly dumb enough, but I say no, now we were smart enough to just get to work.
During the 2002 Olympic Winter Games, the Ogden area hosted 2 venues, curling at the Weber County Ice Sheet and the downhill at Snow Basin Resort.
One of the most amazing things in my life was to come downtown. I think it was 5 degrees in 2002. It had been inverted forever. And we had 106,000 people that came to downtown and watched the torch come through Washington Boulevard. And it was so inspiring to me, and I loved that. And I just thought, Ogden's back, Ogden's back. It was not that way for so long.
So after the Olympics ended, we asked the Olympic Committee if we could get permission to contact the volunteers at the ice sheet and at Snow Basin with the downhill. And begrudgingly, they let us do it one time. They said, yes, you get one shot. And we started with a small group. They're like, yeah, we love that so much. We want to be a part. But we didn't really know what we were asking them to do. We just knew that we wanted to do something.
At that point, it was off to the races. Literally. With an engaged volunteer base, the community was able to attract world-class events that earned worldwide exposure. Their first event was an Xterra Point Series race. Within 2 years, Ogden had stolen the Xterra Mountain Region Championships away from Steamboat, then the USA Championship race from Tahoe, and ultimately the prestigious Pan American Championships. Next came events like the Dew Tour, World Cup Archery, multiple USA Cycling National Championships, Spartan, the Tour of Utah, and this year's Professional Disc Golf Championship.
So that was one of our goals coming out of this, was let's give people world-class experiences here and give them an opportunity to have an emotional attachment here. And that's what we were out of the gates with.
Soon, event organizers and participants were moving their families to Ogden. With them, enough outdoor recreation companies relocated their operations and employee bases that the area became a major hub for the outdoor industry.
Because the cost of living was so affordable, the access to the outdoors and everything else was so amazing, it brought in this creative culture too, that people wanted to come downtown.
An engaged and economically re-energized community established business improvement districts, award-winning reclamation projects, advocacy groups, and community-owned events like the Harvest Moon Celebration, Farmers Market, Witchstock, and the Ogden Twilight Concert Series. The newly designated Nine Rails Arts District, anchored by the Monarch in a fully redeveloped parking garage, and with the new Arts Plaza under construction, has breathed unprecedented creativity into the community and activated areas that sat dormant for decades.
So, as residents of this community, we didn't always believe that this was this wonderful place to live. We actually all kind of were trying to figure out ways to get out of here. But as work started being done and this vision started to take shape, and you saw that vibrancy come to life, and then visitors started to come and see that vibrancy, and they didn't recognize or have any awareness of all of these old problems that plagued us as residents, and all they saw were these beautiful mountain views and this super vibrant downtown full of a local independent spirit and recreation opportunities that were incredibly abundant. And once they came and were sharing that message, then our residents started to believe in it more and more as well. And the cycle just kind of perpetuated itself, because if you create this place that people want to visit, then you also create a place people want to live, and the reverse is true of that as well. If you create a place people want to live, you have this place people want to visit, and the quality of life that just goes around and around is great. And now we have this incredible community where locals are embracing what we have to offer, and you have, all these Ogden apparel shops and stickers on cars and just all of these indicators of pride in place that have come through in just the last handful of years and make this a really exciting place to be. It's amazing to be part of a community that starts to believe in itself.